Okay. Just almost give us a minute to have more people to join and to make sure everyone is on. I am live on social media as well. I have a group called Cobus Visser, Whatever It Takes, where I will be live streaming this. So if you want to go and join, it's Cobus Visser, obviously, Whatever It Takes. And then you're welcome to go and join. Yeah, so today we have a special talk. Last week we talked about breath work. Volker is one of the top experts coming to breathwork in South Africa, taking people on retreats. Also, Volker takes people on spiritual retreats, from plant medicine to, I think he will give us a little bit more info on that. He does men retreats as well. And, you know, he takes people on an experience, on a journey, if I should say, something like that. And so today I don't have a lot of knowledge about family constellations, so there's nothing much I can say about it. But, you know, what I can say is we have the expert here. Stein, it's so nice to see you here as my friend. And you all are welcome to be here. So, Volker, I'm not going to take too much time. I'm going to leave it over to you to introduce and to start your talk. And I'm looking forward to learning from you.
Thank you, Cobus, brother. Always wonderful to have this opportunity. And today's opportunity, to some extent, also comes with a bit of a challenge, because family constellations is probably one of the most difficult modalities to try and explain to people. To be honest, I have yet to come across a real good video online that explains it well, and I'm going to do my absolute best. And it's important because, you know, I am quite eclectic. As Cobus has already mentioned, I'm involved in quite a range of different things. And the things that I do are all things that have really supported me on my own healing journey. You know, I was one of those stubborn, very stubborn men who refused to help myself and look in the right places until I was brought to my knees. You know, sometimes it takes some serious life challenges before we start doing the work, the real work. And by real work, I'm talking about the inner work, as opposed to just exhausting ourselves, trying to manipulate our external environment to find some sense of peace from what can sometimes be an insatiable restlessness, which is what I was experiencing for many years of my life. So it took a few hard knocks for me to surrender to doing the work, and the work that I did, a lot of it has inspired the tools that I use today. So yes, I do wilderness healing retreats, both for mixed gender groups as well as men's rite of passage retreats. In another context, I do some work with plant medicines, and obviously I won't go into detail. That is not what today is about. But the plant medicine work is really emphasized at helping us to drop down below the illusions of how we see reality and how we stay stuck and how we keep ourselves stuck because of the belief systems and the wounded patterning that we have formed in our subconscious and that we grew up with. I do family constellations, I do breath work, I do coaching, and a few other things in between. Family constellations was probably the first modality that I came across on my healing journey that really shifted things for me. You know, again, just to highlight a piece of my background, which I think is quite relevant to today's conversation, I experienced my first significant trauma at the age of 8. Having lost my dad to an accident. It was quite a traumatic accident that he was in, that I was exposed to, you know, at a young age. He was actually killed in a landmine accident while on a business trip, which really rocked our entire family. But because of circumstances surrounding his death and because of my relationship to my dad at that young age, I shut my emotions down, and I didn't realize I had done that. It's not a conscious choice. I just know that for much of my upbringing and for part of my adult life, I was completely emotionally disconnected. In my first marriage, I was married, but emotionally numb. You know, I was doing what fathers did and doing what husbands did and, you know, doing the role of the father and the husband, but I wasn't feeling much of it. And my poor wife wasn't getting that emotional support because I had no clue how to offer that to her. I didn't have it in me. And I didn't realize that I didn't have it in me. I didn't realize that I was disconnected because I didn't know any other way. I didn't know what to benchmark it to or compare it to. It was just what I knew. So as you know, as I mentioned earlier, I got to a stage where my life started unraveling, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need some serious help. And I started doing some deep diving into my stuff. I spent 2 years doing deep inner work. And it was the family constellation modality that broke through that emotional disconnect. And I'm talking about a thick layer that had formed over years and years. I mean, up until that point, I had attended anger workshops, and I had therapists telling me to scream my anger out and to connect into it, and that I'm safe and I can do it. And I couldn't. I couldn't connect into it. It wasn't accessible. So I sat there in these workshops numb to all of it. And then I saw a wonderful therapist who also practices family constellations, very influential in the field of family constellations. And I saw her for one-to-one sessions, one-on-one. I had 3 private sessions with her. And eventually she said to me, after the 3rd session, she looked at me and she shook her head and she said, Volker, I can't get you out of your head. Please come and do a group session. And for so many of us, you know, and I don't only speak for men, but I can relate so strongly to men, you know, that the mind is our safe place. This is where we go. This is where our safe haven, at the expense of connecting into the heart space and reconnecting with our true power. So I knew that what this therapist was recommending was the way to go, but I was so resistant. And it took me a little while before I actually showed up for a group family constellation. And, you know, within 15 minutes, I was releasing intense emotion, not knowing where it was coming from, completely surprised by it, not even realize I had it in me to do that. But that just illustrates how powerful this modality is. And to kick off my talk about family constellations, I want to just, what's coming through to me is just a quote that I want to share, which I think sums it up quite nicely. And the quote is that if you don't know your history, you will never know where you're going. If you don't know your history, you will never know where you're going. So what does that mean? So to just try and unpack that a little at a deeper level, science has revealed that roughly 95% of our behaviors, our choices, our habits, our patterns, our thoughts, roughly 95% of it is influenced by the subconscious and driven predominantly by the subconscious, which means the 5% conscious awareness, that is pretty much the space in which we are trying to navigate and influence our lives. We are trying to, a lot of us, many of us are trying to change our lives at the behavioral level, which means we're trying to work with the 5%, not realizing that even though in my 5% of conscious reality that I'm living every day, I'm trying to develop a healthy relationship, or I'm trying to create a successful business, or I'm trying to achieve something. But there's this 95% tidal wave that I'm not even aware of that's potentially pushing against it, getting in the way, you know, conflicting belief systems. And that 95% is too powerful to ignore. So if we don't, and this is not about wallowing in the past, this is about becoming very aware of what's getting in the way. And what's getting in the way is often sitting in the subconscious. We don't understand it. You know, people go and watch The Secrets in order to try and manifest abundance, and they're all practicing the law of attraction. But if you're not working the subconscious in those practices, it doesn't happen, because it's the subconscious belief systems. It's what we were raised believing that has the greatest influence, until we can expose it and then turn it around, give it new messaging, you know, recondition or undo the conditioning. How family constellations ties into this is that 95% of what's driving our daily choices and our compensating tendencies and our defense mechanisms, that 95% was formed during our upbringing. predominantly in the first 7 years of our life. You know, in the first 7 years of our life, as we are figuring out who we are in the world, we are learning from our caretakers. It's usually our mother and our father, but not always. Sometimes our caretakers are other people. Maybe we didn't have parents growing up, but we are learning about life from our caretakers in those first 7 years. Am I lovable? Am I seen? Am I validated? Am I worthy? Do I belong? And all the neglects, abuse, betrayal, abandonments, and trauma, etc., that we've experienced forms part of our reality about who we perceive ourselves to be in this world. That is our belief system that forms part of our identity, which then shapes our subconscious conditioning. And all of that was shaped by your family system. Okay, so when we talk about family constellations as a modality, it's not necessarily directly linked to all of your family members. Sometimes we do constellation processes where it's not even about your family, but we call it family constellations or systemic constellations because a lot of the patterning that is impacting our physical life and our physical reality comes from the family system. Okay. So what family constellations is, it's a modality for identifying and releasing deeply held and suppressed traumas, energetic entanglements, emotional entanglements. We talk about energetic entanglements through our upbringing, and what these energetic entanglements typically might look like. It's things like resentments. You know, maybe we were raised with an alcoholic father or an absent mother. And then there's this resentment. How could my dad do that to me? How could my mother do that to me? How could they have been so abusive? And the strong judgment, resentment, and lack of forgiveness for the pain that was caused creates energy. It creates an energy entanglement that impacts us. We feel self-righteous that, no, I can't forgive that person because what they did was wrong. Yes, what they did was wrong, but you have to let go of it for it not to impact you. So it creates an energetic entanglement. Another form of entanglement, I'm going to explain the modality in a moment, which will make sense of how we use these entanglements or how we work through them in the actual modality itself. But just to give you examples of entanglements, another one would be, for example, trauma, just being traumatized through a very painful experience growing up. And then there can be what we can refer to as soul loss, a splintering off of a part of yourself, where the trauma could potentially have been so painful that in order to survive it, it had to be buried out of your pain body, out of your, or should I say not out of your pain body, but hidden within your pain body so that you don't have to feel it. And through the burying of these traumas, there's a splintering off. We lose a part of ourselves. And that can often lead to things like depression, feeling empty inside, which then leads to other behaviors like addictive tendencies, things to try and cope. So these are all energetic imbalances. Another form of entanglement would be, for example, where you take on someone else's pain and you don't even do it at a conscious level. You know, language isn't the only language we speak. In fact, energy speaks long before language does. You know, when you walk into a room, there are energetic language transfers taking place or energetic communications taking place long before the spoken language. So as a young child, you might be witnessing your mother's pain because maybe she's going through a really rough time, or your grandmother's pain. And at a young age, you go, I don't want gran to suffer, or I don't want mom to suffer. I want to fix it. I want to heal it. It's my fault. I'm doing this to them. Maybe you feel responsible and you start taking it on. You start taking it on, not even realizing it's not a thought process. This is all happening at the energetic level. And you end up being energetically entangled with the emotional, sometimes even the physical pain of other family members. And then, of course, there's a very common one, and that is not being in your rightful place within your family system, which also creates a massive energetic entanglement that can have a ripple effect in all of your family relationships and your intimate relationships in your own family as an adult. An example of that might be where as a young child, one of your parents is missing. It could be emotionally or physically absent. Okay, it doesn't have to be physically absent. It could be a mom or a dad who is so caught up in their own stuff from their own past that they aren't fully present for their family. They don't know how to fulfill their role as a mother or a father properly. Or it could be physically absent, where they literally disappear out of the family household. And as a young child, you might be the eldest, or you might simply be what we call the healer in the family, and you then just subconsciously take on the role. It's like dad's not here, someone's got to step up. And again, it's not always a thought process. It's a just deep desire to make things right, to fix it, to sort it out. And at a young age, you step into dad's role. You know, you're not sitting in your rightful place as number two in you know, let's say there's 3 siblings, you're the middle one, you're no longer in your rightful place. As the second born sibling, you're now sitting in dad's role, trying to keep the household together. And that can create massive entanglements and conflict in relationships, both with your siblings, and of course, later on, when you embark on your own adventure with family and relationships, because of the entanglement, you can't fully show up in your rightful place because you don't have access to your rightful place. You haven't claimed it. So what we do with family constellations is we work through the energetic entanglements to get everyone back in their rightful place, to hand back burdens that we've taken on, to heal trauma, to release suppressed emotion. There's a lot going on in the family constellation, but it's really a form of energy work. And to explain to you how family constellations work, this is the part that's difficult to explain to people, because family constellations being a form of energy work, it basically means we are working in a field which we call the knowing field. Okay, so I really want you to bear with me while I explain this, because this can be quite difficult to really grasp, because family constellations is it's almost like a magical process. We're working in a field called the knowing field. I want you to imagine a group constellation setup where we have a circle of chairs, normally around about 12 participants. Could be 14, could be 8, but my workshops, there's normally about 12 participants. And we have a circle of chairs that they occupy, and that inner space, we build this beautiful field called the knowing field. The field builds itself. We don't actually do anything other than set intention. And we are then working in the field of the collective consciousness. Why that's important? Because that explains how we're able to experience what we experience. And before I do experience what we experience in the constellation process, so that you can try and have a sense of how that could be possible, I want you to, for a moment, I'm going to use nature to explain what this all-knowing field might look like. You know, we would actually need to use quantum science to actually illustrate at a scientific level, what is the all-knowing field? How can I step into the field and, for example, connect into someone else's energies, which is what we actually do. And I'm going to elaborate on that in a moment. I'm stepping into the field and I'm allowing myself to connect into someone else's energy. And I start to feel what's really happening for that person, emotionally, physically, very real. How is that possible? To use nature to explain this, I'm going to quickly show you 2 images, which I think explains it very, very nicely. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly share my screen with you. So what you're seeing there is what we call, it's a murmuration. It's a fancy word for a flock, I guess, but when it comes to starlings, it's called a murmuration. That's a murmuration of starlings. These murmurations, which is a group of starlings flying in these incredible formations in the sky at very rapid speed. If you watch a YouTube video of it, you'll see how fast these shapes are moving and changing shape. These murmurations, they can account to up to 1 million birds flying in one murmuration, up to 1 million in one murmuration. And then, of course, we can also reference the sardine run. Again, millions and millions of sardines moving in these rapid shapes and formations. So what science and scientists have identified when studying these murmurations and these schools of sardines, they identified that those single birds and those single fish are changing direction together a lot faster than what their minds can actually think, right? In other words, they're not sitting there going, okay, there's a dolphin coming from the right, we must all turn left now. You know, the starlings aren't all going, okay, everyone left turn. They can't do that. They are changing direction way too quickly for their minds to have an individual thought process around it. And so scientists were very curious. And the only explanation they can come up with, which is a very sound explanation, is that these birds and these fish are forming a sense of oneness. They are forming a collective energy and moving as one, okay, because they're all connected energetically to each other. Quantum science also shows us that energetically, at some level, we are all connected. We are all connected. And knowing that we are all connected allows me, when I step out of my individual field, energy field, and I move into a collective energy field, it gives me access to other people's energies. Okay. We can go into a more scientific explanation, but the best thing to do to actually resonate with and believe what I'm sharing with you is to actually go and experience it. You know, as I mentioned, I do many, many different things. I wouldn't do this if it wasn't real. And I wouldn't do this if it wasn't one of the most powerful things that I offer, which it happens to be. It's, you know, these energies we are tapping into are very real. And I'm going to obviously elaborate on that in a moment. I'm simply showing you nature's version of collective field, moving as one and being able to connect into that oneness. Another example I can share with you is, you may have heard of the 100th monkey effect. So the 100th monkey effect, the story behind the 100th monkey effect is that in, I think it was an island in Japan in the 1950s, these Japanese, I forget if it was Chinese or Japanese scientists, were doing research on monkeys on an island. The island's name was Koshima. And they were doing this research on monkeys. And part of the research, what they were doing was trying to teach these monkeys new behavior. And one of the things that they were able to teach these monkeys to do was to wash sweet potatoes before eating them. So the monkeys would take the sweet potatoes, wash the dirt off, and realized it tastes better without the dirt. And then all the monkeys on this particular island started teaching each other how to do the same thing, until all the monkeys on the island were washing their sweet potatoes. What surprised the scientists, because this didn't form part of their research, was that on another island, far, far away, but you know, like the next island or the neighboring island, too far apart for the monkeys to have crossed islands. In other words, it wasn't a distance that you could swim. The monkeys had no contact with the monkeys on the first island. They all eventually started washing their sweet potatoes. And again, you know, the scientists who were involved in this wanted to understand why. And the quantum scientific explanation is that we have access to a collective wisdom or a collective field where we can access information. Okay. So how does that relate to family constellations? I have already alluded to it, but I'm going to explain to you how this works, which will then also explain why I've spent a bit of time explaining collective energy fields. Okay. The way this process works is we gather as a group, and you arrive not knowing anybody else, complete strangers in the circle. And you, let's assume for a moment, you are doing your family constellation. So a family constellation, Normally takes between 45 minutes to an hour. Sometimes it can take 90 minutes, depending on the complexity that's being worked through. So typically in a workshop, I would do between 4 and 6 constellations. 6 is quite intense. Between 4 and 6, that would fill up an entire day. So the other people who are there are simply there as representatives to support the work being done. So we sit in our circle, and we have one empty chair next to my chair to the right, which is the chair that is occupied by the person who is now going to do their constellation. So that person will come and occupy the chair, and we will have a brief discussion to understand what is it that is wanting to be healed, transformed, understood. There is very little that you cannot work with in constellations, whether it's relationship challenges, financial issues, health problems, depression, anxiety, and anything in between. There is very little we cannot support in family constellation work, all right? So that highlights what I was saying. It doesn't mean you have to be working directly with family issues. The reason it's called family constellations is because a lot of our challenges are rooted in the family system. But you can bring any challenge to this particular modality, and it can provide incredible healing and transformation. So we would ascertain what is the dominant thing you would like to take away from the workshop. And you might have a challenge in your relationships. In fact, I'm going to give you a hypothetical example so that you can really understand at a practical level how the modality works, okay? A pure hypothetical example. You are struggling to find the right relationship, and you have a habit of attracting abusive or neglectful relationships. Okay, it's a pattern, and you've noticed it. Why do I keep attracting the same man, or why do I keep attracting the same woman? And obviously, my example could be the same with finances. Why am I always poor? Why do my attempts at success always fail? Why are these patterns there? So once we understand what it is you want to resolve, coming back to my example of the relationship analogy, I, as the facilitator, through my training, I know exactly what questions to ask just to uncover some of the facts around that pattern. Tell me a little bit more about your mother. Tell me a little bit more about your father. What was the upbringing like? And we are not interested in your story. That might sound odd, okay? What I'm saying by that is we are not interested in your judgments, your perspectives, how you saw things, because none of that is real in the greater context of what's really going on. That is only one perspective of what was going on. You know, you, as I said earlier, your entanglements might involve being angry towards dad who was never home, or mom that did that thing, or this person that did that thing, but you don't know what was going on for that person. You don't know how they were viewing reality from their perspective. You only have your view, and we are not working with your view of reality in constellation work. And that's one of the reasons why it's so powerful. We are working at the level of truth, way beyond your judgments and your perceptions, okay? So when we do the interview, I'm not going to allow you to tell me your whole story about how this person did this and they're not good enough because of that thing that happened. I simply want to know, who do we need to put into the field to set up this dynamic that resulted in this pattern that you are currently experiencing? That's what we want to ascertain. So through my questioning, again, back to my example, we might figure out that your dad was never home and there's a strained relationship between you and your dad, and maybe something happened with your mom as well. So we decide, okay, let's set the constellation up just with you, your mom, and your dad. So now we know how we're setting it up. The story is irrelevant. I simply need to know who's going into the field. Once we have ascertained, we are going to put you, your mom, and your dad in the field. You would then get up and you'd look around the room and you would decide, by just feeling into it and knowing that you can't get it wrong, you literally can't get it wrong. Okay, so even those of you who are watching this, saying to yourself, yeah, but what if I don't feel anything, or what if I'm not intuitive? It doesn't matter. This work is far too profound for any of that to be relevant. You get up and you just feel into who here would best represent my dad energetically, and you just pick someone. And if you can't feel it, you just pick someone, and it'll be the right person. You will choose someone from that group of strangers to represent your dad. You will choose someone to represent your mom, and you will choose somebody to represent you, which is another reason why this work is so powerful, because you cannot get in the way. I shared with you earlier about, the psychologist who was having these one-on-one sessions with me. She was doing family constellation work in a one-on-one capacity, but I was blocking it. I wasn't trying to block it. I wanted to heal. I wanted to transform, but I wasn't allowing her to at a deeper level. There was too much resistance. It was my own defense kicking in because there was too much pain there. And a part of me didn't want me to feel the pain. So it just kept blocking things without me even realizing I was blocking things. So I just kept having intellectual conversations, and I was getting in the way of the process. When you do a group family constellation, you can't get in the way because you aren't involved in your own process. And that's why it's incredibly powerful. So you will choose someone to represent you as well. So now you've got these three strangers standing in the field, and you will gently position them. And it's always done with respect. You get up and you go, will you please represent my father? The person can decline if they want to for some reason, but usually the representatives are more than willing to support, and they step into the field. Then you sit down and you become the observer. And I'm sitting there as the facilitator, and we just wait. And this is where the magic starts to happen, okay? They stand there just with the willingness and the intention to represent those different people in this field, and they start to feel the feelings. So it is role-playing, but it's not acting. The role playing is, I am going to willingly and temporarily represent your father. And because I'm standing in this quantum field, the knowing field, somehow I start to feel his energies. And it can be quite subtle. I'm standing there going, sure, this person next to me, I'm feeling charged by this person. I'm feeling angry about them. So you don't know the story behind what this person experienced. You don't know anything about it. You just start feeling energy and you start owning it. This is now as the representative. And what we start to see unfolding in the first half of a constellation process is the truth of what is really going on beyond the perceptions and the judgments of the person doing the constellation. So it is in a space like this where you're sitting there potentially carrying this massive resentment towards your dad because maybe he was an alcoholic, maybe he abused the family. And then you're witnessing in the field your dad break down and talk about his own upbringing, and how he was abused growing up, and how and all the pain he's experiencing. And you realize, oh my goodness, what my dad did wasn't right. But I can see now he didn't know any other way. He was too caught up in his own pain. So it's not about condoning behavior. It's never right to abuse anybody or to neglect anybody. But sometimes we just don't know any other way because of what we've been raised with, because of our own upbringing. And this field starts to reveal what is happening for all the other people in that dynamic. And then we start to transform it, okay? We use healing sentences, we shift emotion, we feel emotion. Those people who are representing you and your family members are starting to release emotion. They're connecting into their anger. They're crying out the tears that haven't been cried. And what's really important to understand is because they are feeling the energies for real, the shifts are happening for real. Okay? The energy transfer, the energy disentanglements that we are creating are impacting your family system for real. So the mother, the father, who aren't even part of the constellation, they might not even know that you're doing it. They might be in another part of the world. At some level, they are going to be impacted energetically by the work that you're doing. There's a common saying in constellation work: family constellations heals 7 generations ahead of you and heals 7 generations behind you. Okay, that's the impact and the power of this work. Again, when we look at, and I don't want to go into a philosophical discussion, you know, the conversation around family constellations can go quite deep, but just to touch on it, I want you to understand that linear time as we know it, okay, only exists in the 3rd dimension. Linear time only exists in our 3-dimensional reality. Because we are working in the quantum field of the collective conscious energy, we're not limited to that dimension. So the work that I'm doing is supporting ancestors who have passed on as much as it's supporting future generations. And we don't even have to get philosophical. All I want you to understand is what we don't transform, we transfer. What we don't transform, we transfer. If my dad was abused by his dad and he's going to abuse me, and then if I don't do my inner work, I'm going to abuse my children because it's all I've known. Until we choose to heal, until we choose to disconnect those entanglements, we will transfer whatever we've experienced, you know. So this work helps us to unravel so that we don't keep handing those burdens down. So as I said, in the second part of this constellation, we are changing the energy flow from a dysfunctional family system, getting everything back in its rightful place, handing burdens back to where they belong, to get the love flowing through the system. And that doesn't mean fixing everything. It doesn't mean changing the past, which we can't do. It means acknowledging. It's simply acknowledging what happened and then letting it go in a very, very powerful, powerful way. Okay. To share with you very quickly how real this is. And again, you know, if what I'm saying to you sounds very woo-woo, go and give it a try and then come and tell me it's woo-woo. It's very, very real and very powerful work. I've witnessed constellations. I'm giving you one of many, many examples. You know, a woman gets asked to represent someone's aunt, and she stands in this field. And then about a minute later, she lifts her right leg off the ground. She doesn't know why she's doing it. She just gets the urge to lift the right leg off the ground, only to find out later on that the aunt didn't have a right leg. So that is how real the energy and the information transfer can be. Okay. I've also witnessed, and this is to explain how powerful this ripple effect can be, this energy transfer and how it impacts the entire family system. I once did a constellation on a Sunday for a particular person, a young person whose dad abused the family for her entire upbringing. He was an alcoholic and he abused the whole family quite severely until eventually the mother was able to leave the father, who then immigrated to another part of the world. And this young lady was there to constellate that. And in the constellation, she was able to see how her father had been abused by both his parents growing up. And how we get to understand that is because I brought his parents in. I used 2 representatives to bring his parents in to go, what is happening there? And we saw very quickly how both his parents abused him when he was growing up. And so he didn't know any other way. You know, we can't give people love that we don't have to give. I can't love someone if I wasn't shown how to love someone. It's not in me. I can give you all the love I have to give. Yes, as a father, I can give my child all the love I have to give. It doesn't mean it's enough, but it's all I have to give because I wasn't shown another way. We have to understand that. So in this constellation, this woman starts to witness how her father had been terribly abused his whole upbringing, and then he became the abusive father because of the patterning that was handed down. And there was a lot of anger, a lot of resentment from her side, but she was able to move through it and to reach a state of forgiveness. And there was this beautiful sort of closure to the constellation of just this letting go. She hadn't spoken to her father for 10 years. 10 years. We did the constellation on the Sunday. On the Monday, he contacted her and told her he wanted to buy her a flight ticket to come visit him because he wanted to mend their relationship and how sorry he was, etc., etc. So that is how profound this ripple effect can be, and it can be subtle. You know, people that were impacted by the family dynamic, they can feel the shift at some level, but typically everyone benefits. So it's an incredibly powerful modality. I've explained a little bit about how it works. The one part, as I said, that's hard to understand is how we're connecting to other people's energy, but that's what makes it so, so powerful. And it's really just understanding quantum science. You know, when you break everything down, at some level, everything is energy. And energy is able to connect. We are able to connect. And I'm going to take you through an exercise. We do have time for this. I'm going to take you through a quick exercise to give you a taste of how we can connect into other energies. It does require you to be a little bit playful and to just use your imagination, be open to it. Okay, be open to it. I have every understanding for anyone who's sitting here still feeling skeptical. Absolutely. When I first heard about family constellations, I was like, this is absolute woo-woo stuff because I've got quite a scientific mind and I need my stuff backed by science. And I did the group constellation and then I didn't need the science anymore because the evidence was just way too real to even need the science. But if you dig deep enough, there is some sound scientific explanation. But what I'm going to take you through now is not a family constellation experience. We don't have the conducive setup for that. You know, we aren't in a space where I can give you the true taste of a constellation. But what I can do is a process called quantum aligning, which allows you to connect with another energy that isn't even in your space, which is just a taste of what's possible. All right. And then I'll take questions from anyone who has any questions. So what I'm going to invite you to do is I'm going to invite you just to get into a comfortable seated position. It might be useful to have pen and paper in case you want to jot down some pointers afterwards, but you can also do that later on. Just get into a comfortable position. We're going to do a short visualization. And what I want you to do is just bring to mind something in your life that you want to receive insight on. Maybe there's a challenge in some area of your life that you want to resolve. It could be something in your relationship. It could be something in your business, something with your health, something with your energy. It could be pretty much anything. Just pinpoint something that you would like to receive some wisdom on or some insight on, or just general resolution. Think of anything just for this exercise, knowing that you can come back and repeat this exercise for yourself whenever you want to. So just pick anything. Right. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to think of, imagine you could choose anybody, living or dead. It could be someone from the 1940s. It could be someone present day, you know, living or dead, any person or being that you would like to receive some wisdom or insight from around this specific challenge. It could be Gandhi, it could be Mandela, it could be your high school teacher, it could be a family member, it could be an archangel, it could be anybody, any energetic being that you would like to ask for insight. Just pick someone. Doesn't matter who it is. We're just going to be playful with this exercise. Okay, so let's have fun with it. Normally, when I do this as a process, which I sometimes use in my coaching practice, we would get, 3 different sources of wisdom, but we're going to keep it nice and simple. Just pick one. I'm trusting by now you've all got one. Don't overthink it. Just pick any one, knowing that there's an amazing opportunity to get wisdom from someone truly special. And all I'm going to invite you to do now is to close your eyes. Sit nice and straight, but comfortable. So, you want your spine to be nice and straight, sitting strong, but then fully relaxing into your posture. Just relaxing completely. And all I'm inviting you to do is just to be open to the experience. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not, whether you're skeptical or not. The fact that you're here, the fact that you're on this call, just enjoy it and go with it as best you can. And be open to being surprised. Relaxing completely, relaxing your breath. I want you to take slow, full breaths through your nose. Nice, slow, full breaths. A nice count would be in to a count of 5, out to a count of 5. Just relaxing your being completely, bringing your awareness to the present moment. And I want you now, using your imagination freely and playfully, knowing that you can't get this wrong. Whatever happens in your experience is perfect for you. I want you to simply imagine yourself in a really peaceful, private, beautiful setting of your choice. It could be a beautiful private garden. It could be a forest. It could be somewhere indoors. Wherever you will feel safe, relaxed, and private. This is your space. This is your special space. Just allow yourself to arrive in this space. Notice what's around you. Notice the sensations, the sounds. Notice what you're wearing. Are you wearing the same clothes, or are you wearing something different in this place? Again, allowing your imagination to flow freely, just being open to the experience. Just giving yourself permission to feel the sensations of your environment and what's there. Maintaining a nice, slow, rhythmic breath. Just allow it to become as real as you can. And now I'm going to invite you to invite this person, this being, into your space. This person who is willing to come and offer you insights, guidance, wisdom, support. To support you in whichever way they can. To see them arriving, notice what they're wearing as they walk towards you. What are they wearing? What is the expression on their face? Knowing that they're there in full support, welcome them in. And just allow them to take up a seat next to you, trusting the process and just being open to whatever is unfolding. This is a wonderful opportunity to connect in a special place with a very special being. And I want you just to thank them for arriving, thank them for being willing to show up in support in whichever way feels appropriate for you. And I simply want you to ask them now, regarding your challenge, regarding the specific thing you want to resolve, what insights, or wisdom can they offer you? Allow them to express freely and trust whatever comes up. Give yourself permission to make it up if you must, because you can't get it wrong. They might offer one word, they might offer a sentence, they might offer a full description. Just take a moment to receive all the wisdom from this being. If they have stopped sharing, just ask them, is there anything else that they want you to know that will serve you? Is there anything else they want you to know that will serve you? Just take your time with this. I'm going to invite you to now thank them for their wisdom, thank them for their support. Again, in a moment, we're going to bid them farewell. So just prepare to say goodbye to them in whichever way feels right for you. And see them off, leaving your space. But I'm going to invite you to remain in that space. I have one more visitor coming to greet you. I have one more visitor coming to offer you wisdom and support. Sitting there in your space, I want you to imagine coming into that space, walking towards you is your 110-year-old self. This is the you that has lived a full, rich life. This is the you of the future, of your future, coming towards you. Trust the process, be open to the experience, be playful with it. Your 110-year-old self coming towards you to offer support. Notice what they're wearing. Again, just look into their eyes as they get nearer, the expression on their face, knowing they're there in full support. Taking up a seat next to you. Thank this 110-year-old wise self for coming back in time to support you, to let you know what you need to know for your life right now, with all the wisdom they had to share. And I want you to ask this part of you, what is it that they want you to know about this thing that you want to resolve, this challenge you want to resolve? What wisdom do they have for you? Trust whatever comes up. Again, give yourself permission to make it up, because you will always make it up from a place of deeper truth. What else might they want you to know that might support you right now? What other messages might they have for you? Just take a moment to receive their wisdom. And then in a similar way, just thank them for their support in whichever way feels appropriate, knowing that they're always there to support you whenever you need support. You simply need to ask for it. It will always be there. Thanking them in your own way, and then gently returning to the space. And when you feel ready in your own time, you can gently open your eyes. Taking all the time you need. If you've received any nuggets of wisdom, you might want to drop those down just to capture them before they fade from your memory. And I think it's important also to mention what you've just experienced. It's not a family constellation. When you step into the family constellation field, you're not having to try, especially those of you who might not be used to, familiar with, or maybe even comfortable harnessing the imagination and doing these visualizations. If you don't like this kind of thing, you may have resisted the process or blocked it out, and maybe you didn't feel very much, and maybe you really had a profound experience. This is simply an exercise that describes quantum aligning. It's called quantum aligning. It's one of the techniques also used by John Kehoe, who is one of the world's leading figures in mind power, also backed by quantum science, this ability to connect at some level with other things. So it's called quantum aligning, and the exercise is just to give you a taste of our ability to connect into other wisdom, other energy bodies at some level. But when you do a family constellation, you don't have to have any particular skills whatsoever. As I've already mentioned, when I did my first constellation, I was completely disconnected, and I had such a powerful breakthrough. So for family constellation work, you just need to arrive. That's it. The magic and the power will just reveal itself, and it'll unfold naturally. So I want to take a few moments. I see we've just approaching 1 o'clock. I just want to open the floor or the space to anyone who might have questions about family constellations as a modality. Any questions or confusion you may have around the process, please feel free to ask. Thanks, Cobus. If you want to connect with me, I run family constellation workshops predominantly in Cape Town because that's where I live. I usually run them every month. There are a number of people in Joburg asking me to come and do them up there as well. So if you're curious, if you're interested, if you just want to have a conversation about it or know more about it, please hop onto my website. I've just posted the link into the chat, and you can either email or subscribe. Subscribing will give me access to your email address where I can keep you posted, or you can email me directly. The email address is hello@volkerschlettwein.com, but you'll pick that up via the website as well. So if you want to try out a family constellation, like I said, I'm quite eclectic. I do a lot of different things. This is one of the most powerful modalities that I offer, and I'm including my work with San Pedro and the plant medicines and these incredible 4-day retreats we do. This is the real deal. It creates incredibly powerful shifts and deep healing around stuff that half the time we aren't even aware of. Some of these entanglements are so deeply rooted, we don't even know that it's there and that it's impacting my disempowering, sabotaging behaviors. So this work creates the link. Oh, now I understand my patterning. Now I understand why I keep sabotaging myself, because of this entanglement from my family system way back, as part of my whole story. And once we reveal that, we can completely transform it. All right. What area am I in? I'm personally based in the southern suburbs. I live in an area called Meadow Ridge, and I've been using a venue in Constantia called the Yoga the yoga sanctuary in Constantia, but sometimes I run them sort of in Rondebosch area, but usually between southern suburbs, Hart Bay and town, sort of in that greater area, wherever I find a suitable venue. Okay. If you have any other questions, you can also feel free to unmute yourself to ask a question or just pop a comment into the chat. Thanks, Lilani. It's, like I said, it's not an easy modality to explain, you know. While we just wait for any other possible questions, I really want to emphasize that forgiveness is not about condoning wrong behavior. You know, we so often hold on to resentment, and I want you to understand that resentment is a low vibration energy. It's toxic, and your reluctance to forgive other people makes you toxic, not the other person. You know, there's that old saying that's been overused, so forgive me for using it again, but the old saying around you know, resentment and forgiveness is not forgiving someone and having resentment towards someone is like, you know, swallowing poison and hoping that they're going to die. You know, it doesn't work that way. You're the one holding onto the energy. So the forgiveness process is liberating you. It's not even about the other person. It's liberating you. But how do we forgive? In order for us to forgive, we need to understand. Because if I don't have context or understanding for why people hurt me, I can't forgive them. But this work gives us the level of understanding that everyone is always doing the best they can, even when they're screwing everything up. We are doing the best we can because so many of us are responding to life from our own wounding. And until we learn a better way, until we heal to a certain level, we can't do any better than what we're doing. Even the hectic stuff, like the abuse, you know, and the betrayals and the neglect. Another way to see it, you know, is to see that nobody has faults, but everybody carries wounds. We have a tendency through our judgments to go, it was their fault, their fault, their fault. Like, no, they're wounded, they're wounded, they're wounded, and we're all responding from our wounding, and we're all walking each other home, and we're all screwing things up, and then we learn better, and then we do better. And this is the work that helps us to do better. It's creating understanding. It's having compassion for our pain, the pain of our family line, the pain of our ancestors. Think for a moment. Our grandparents were fighting war. Our grandparents were in the war. What was your mom and dad experiencing growing up? You know, the love that our parents received from their parents, it wasn't being snuggled and held and told how special we are. It was putting food on the table and making sure that you can wake up tomorrow and physically surviving. That's the experience a lot of our parents had. So we are the generation, typically, through a growing conscious awareness, we are the generation that is doing the shift. We are the ones saying, I will not allow my children to have that same upbringing that I've had and that my father had and that my grandfather had. I'm doing the work. And maybe right now, I don't care enough about myself to do the work, but I'll be damn sure to do it for my children and their children. You know, we've got to do the work. As I said earlier, what we don't transform, we transfer. And family constellations is a powerful healing modality to untangle those energy entanglements and unravel those patterns of behavior that we sometimes or otherwise hand down to the future generations. Okay, any other questions? Any other comments? Cobus, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, I see. Paulie said, did you answer Paulie's question?
I may have missed it. Can you repeat it?
Amazing. How do one get through to a hard-headed person that ignores you when asking a question to, or when you talk, sorry, how do I apologize to them in order for her to hear what I'm saying or telling?
Okay, so it's very important to understand, and this doesn't only apply to family constellations. I think it applies to life in general, is we can't change other people. We can only ever change ourselves. you know. So yes, when I do constellation work, it's going to have an impact on my family system, and it's going to support everyone in some way or another. But if there's someone, as you've said, who's hard-headed and who is refusing to receive, you can't change that. You can't control that. What you do have control over is how you respond to those other people by doing your own work. And often, by doing your own work, you change what is mirrored to you. Because there's a very profound thing in life that we don't see life as it is, we see life as we are. So if that hard-headed person is triggering you in some way through how they respond to you, you've got to ask yourself, what is the lesson for me in this? Because their trigger, the trigger itself is coming from within me, not from the hard-headed person. Yes, they've got their flaws or they've got their own woundings, but they're doing that, they're in your face, they're mirroring something to you, which is a healing opportunity for you. It's not your job to try and heal or fix other people. You can only ever transform yourself, and that will naturally transform your external environments. Okay, there's another saying that comes to mind. When you want more for someone else than they want for themselves, you are wasting your time. So the best way to get someone else to want something for themselves is by being the example. You know, the moment you go to someone and say, you need to do this, you must go and do a family constellation, you need this, you're going to get nowhere, right? The resistance kicks up. But when you go to the family constellation, you do the work and you come back a changed person, they're going to become very curious when they see more of your light, when they see more of your joy, when they see that you're elevating your life in incredible ways. That's when they come to you asking the right questions. But to chase after their healing is not the way to go about it. I hope that's in a roundabout way answers your question.
Great. Then I see Stan says you are ultimately what you focus on and habitually to your energy and vibration is influenced by your habits. Marinda says Cobus, the one on Wednesday nights, the brave work is awesome. I also shared links in how to join the next family system constellation. On the link is on Quickhead. The weekly Wednesday brave work session, there's a link for that as well. And then Volker is planning a Euro brave work journey over 6 weeks. I've just posted that link for you as well. Marinda says, I know, Gerard, thank Volker and Cobus. Kim, many thanks, Cobus. Much appreciated. Love Bert Hellinger's work in family constellation, allowing love to flow through the orders of love, a powerful and transformative process. Marinda says, oh my word, energy is awesome. I was so tuned in on the exercise. I asked the same question as I'm battling getting through to my son at the moment. Advice from the dad sitting under a tree was to let go and stop pressurizing. Asked, and my dad came and sat with me. Thanks, Paulie and Volker. Aha moment there. Sally, what group size would you need to come up to Joburg?
So typically a workshop, the ideal size for a group is about 12 people. We can only do around 6 constellations in one day. And what I would typically do is I would tie it in with maybe a second or third workshop to make the whole trip viable. You know, there are people in Joburg who benefit from other modalities that I teach. So I might come and do a weekend wilderness retreat. I might tie it in with Cobus's Firewalk, which I'm busy exploring. So for a workshop, about 12 people with 6 people constellating would be ideal.
Okay, great.
Connect with me and we can chat further. For those of you who are Cape Town based, I'm running a constellation workshop on the 28th of August, which is in a couple of weeks' time, and I've still got space for that one, so you can just connect with me there.
Shelley says, now that sounds like a plan. Cobus bringing in yeah, definitely. Volker needs to bring in the firewalking as a modality, but I think Volker, what he does is amazing and he really impacts people's lives. So Volker, I just want to say from my side, thank you for being here today and showing up, and maybe let's talk about what else you can maybe do in a week or 2 weeks time. Maybe we do another session and some of your skills and expertise. Maybe we can talk about plant medicine for those who don't know what plant medicine is.
What's coming up for me is to maybe do a talk about the hero's journey.
That would be nice.
Which could be quite interesting to talk about.
Yeah, so Darren is online, so see, I will ask her just if you guys just can maybe choose a date and we can set that going. And okay. maybe also, at one point, maybe we can do a talk about men as well, and invite men about your men's retreat, that would be awesome. I see Miranda
Wonderful.
says, thank you, Volker and Cobus, for hosting. Thank you, Miranda, for showing up. And they say plant medicine is awesome. And so from my side, everyone, thank you for showing up on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. Thank you for Volker for his time. I've posted the links in the chat box. So if you want to go and follow, please go connect with Volker. If you don't know where it is, you're welcome to reach out to Darren at Cobus Visser. We will be sending out the recordings as soon as we can, but also the recordings are live on social media. So you're welcome to go and follow me. Anba says, thank you. Belinda says, thank you both. Great presentation. Like you see, our main focus on what we do here at Cobus Visser is, yes, it is to show you what we do and give you our products that you can choose to do. But as you notice, our main focus and intent is to bring value and to inspire and to bring hope. And, if you are called to follow one speaker or someone, you're most welcome to go and reach out to them, whoever you connect with. And thank you for that. And Volker, any last words? And then we can close today's call.
I just want to thank you all for showing up and for being curious about this incredible work. And just want to encourage you, even if you don't fully understand how it works, give it a try. It's safe, it's powerful, and it will shift things for you in beautiful ways. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day. Thank you, Volker.
Lots of love to all. Cheers. Bye-bye.
And a hug. Hug to you, brother.
And hugs. Lots of hugs. Ciao, bro.
Ciao. Bye.